Okay, okay. I think we're live, right? Yeah. All right. Looks like it. Hi, everyone. Can you just give me the thumbs up? Can you hear me? Yeah. I don't do live stream a lot. Should do this more often. Yeah. Just give me the thumbs up. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah. All right. Yeah. You guys can hear me. All right. Cool. 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 All right. I'll try not to look to this monitor. I got everything set up here. I don't do this often. I don't do live stream a lot. Should do this more often. Uh, Thanks everyone for joining. I mean, a lot of love. So nice to see all these good people from the internet. This concept of or this topic of diagrams has been something that kind of it almost like a parallel track to my career. And the reason that I'm saying this is because when I started, my diagrams were shit, really. I got better. I got better and better and better, and to the point that I take a lot of pride of this because I think that it conveyed the message. And I'm a big believer that you eat with your eyes first. So, yeah, that's why I want to do this. I'm not going to bore you with all this stuff. Thanks everyone for joining, and see everyone. I see, George and Robin and team. Hey, Oscar. Nice to see you, man. And everyone, thanks for joining. Honestly, a lot of love. Thanks so much. All right. Yeah. All right. We'll move to this. You know what? I'm just going to change the layout here, and then I'm going to pop my face again. So, like, pack agenda. Really, there's a lot going on here. So we're going to cover a lot of concepts in the next 85 minutes or so. First of all, I want to talk to you about my principles, and how do I think about diagramming? What are my personal thoughts? Before I go into the agenda, by the way, I saw this comment from, I don't remember who it was, on the previous live stream that I did for this same topic. And someone says that I talk too much, but the session was good. And I was like, okay, thanks. So I hope I'm not going to talk too much. Anyway, I'm going to talk about some based object styling. How do I go about creating the foundation for these diagrams? I'll talk to you about the concepts of inside out, like what does that mean to build diagrams from the inside to the outside. Object relationship and dimensions, very important topic, that a lot of people are not paying attention to. We'll talk about some fonts and hyphens, and colors, which is a big one. Colors, accent backgrounds. How do you go about accessibility? I'll give you some pro tips around that. We'll talk a bit about icons and where do you get those icons. I get this question a lot, so I'll share with you some resources there. We'll also talk about the difference between SVG to PNG, and when should you use what. Symmetry, leveling, and alignment, another big one. Step numbers. How do you create those nice step numbers and style those. Arrows. I know that I keep saying like this is a big one, but arrows really represent a lot of the relationship aspect within a diagram. Intentional gaps for a cleaner look. You'll see what I'm talking about. Margins for text. I'll show you some nice tricks. There's there on how to go beyond just the default what PowerPoint is giving you. I'll talk to you about how do you go by and save those PNGs and JPEG in high resolution if you're not familiar with that method. And eventually I'll talk to you a bit about what is it that I use here. Like what are the things that that I use to create these type of diagrams. I'll try to look at the chat from here and there. I'll try to see if there are any questions and whatnot. I'll try to answer, but I really want to focus on just kind of give you all that knowledge and do a brain dump on you. So again, thanks for joining. Let's go. All right. First thing first, I want to set the stage. In the previous time that I did this, I actually went and explained the concept of conceptual, logical, and physical diagrams. I'm not going to do that right now. You can go and check it out. I'll link it in the description later. But there are a few concepts and principles that I do want to bring up. So if you know me, you worked with me, or you already seen these diagrams, you know that no detail is too small for me. But sometimes less is more. I know it's kind of it's two different. Like it's the opposite. but it really is like that. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes the diagram doesn't have to be so crowded, but it really depends. So we'll talk about that a bit later on. Inside out, whatever possible. So inside out, again, we'll touch on it a lot. But inside out is really the concept of how do you start with the smallest piece of a diagram, and then you start to expand into the bigger pieces until you get, this full picture. Stay consistent. Oh, sorry, symmetry. Definitely, symmetry is your friend. I like symmetry. Dark theme. A lot of people are asking me, hey, why you're not doing like a light theme? And there's actually a story around this. I'll share this with you real quick here. So when I was 18, I did a laser job. I used to have like glasses, high cylinder. And after the surgery, like everything is okay. I see perfect. But I became very sensitive to light. So I really need to monitor the light levels that I'm getting in my eyes, and dark theme really helps me. So that's why I exclusively work with dark theme. And plus, I think it's more nicer. Anyway, stay consistent. Consistency is important. Not every diagram is meant to be on the big screen. Some diagrams are busy, and it's okay. Don't let anyone telling you that the diagram is too busy. If it's busy, it means that you crammed a lot of details. Sometimes you can optimize, but don't let anyone telling you a diagram is too busy. I really hate when someone is telling me this, without a real kind of explanation why it's too busy. Like, what's the problem? But again, it all depends. Know your keyboard shortcuts. We'll talk about that. Practice some more. It takes time. It takes time to get to this level of diagramming, and for you to be happy. It's really about you. These things are really what works for me. It doesn't have to work for you, but takes practice no matter what. And I'm not a fan of moving diagrams. I got asked around this, but not a fan. The reason that I'm not a fan of these moving diagrams that you see out there, with all these errors flying around and all of that, I don't know, feels too plastic, feels that it's not something that you can put on an architecture document, feels like something that doesn't feel to me like an engineering diagram. And again, it's my personal opinion. You don't have to agree, but hey, it's my stream. All right, let's dive. Let's start talking about this. So today we're going to talk about how to actually go by and create this type of stuff. Like, what are you see this diagram, but there's so many things, so many concepts, small things that goes into these type of diagrams, and I'm going to walk you through. So this is one example. Again, this is not going to be an ARC session. I know that a lot of people know me from the ARC space. It's not going to be an ARC session. It's not going to be an IoT session. I don't care about the technology per se for this session, but it is about the diagramming and the concepts and the styling. So how do you go by and create these type of diagrams that that you're seeing here? What are the relationship? Again, all these small nuances that you get out of these type of diagrams. All right, I thought I had a few more. Yeah, I had a few more. I think I got the order messed up. So yeah, this is another one. This one is a pretty new one, and there's a lot of things went into this. We'll talk about it. Here you can see the step number. There is some text. So you see, like, every diagram has different elements. So I'll try to cover as much as possible. All right. Cool. Let's dive in. I'm going to move into presentation mode. Sorry, I'm going to go outside of presentation mode. I'm going to start with the basics. By the way, this is going to be the last session for me for 2023. I'm taking the entire December off, so I'm pretty excited about that. So thanks for sharing with me the last session that I'm doing from 2023. I don't know how much I did, but that was a lot. So yeah, let's just dive in. The first thing that we need to cover is the based object. Like, how do I actually go by and create this styling? Like, what do I do in order to do this? Now, you basically have two ways to go about this. You have the shortcut, which is taking those diagrams that I'm creating, copy the element, and start using that. Or if you want to understand the sausage making of how I create those objects, let's take a look. So, by the way, if you want to copy, right? If you want to copy the actual styling, right? So just copy, like Control C, and then here you have so this is not a good example, but if you want to take the entire slide, right, and then right click, you have this keep source formatting. I hope the resolution is okay. So it's this guy right here. right? So keep source formatting will give you exactly the same formatting. Like, we're just going to show you what will happen if you're not going to do that, and we're just going to do Control V. So, well, in this case, nothing's going to happen. It's the same styling all over, but you're definitely going to get like different colors, and everything will look wonky. All right, let's go into the object. So how do you go by from this to this? So how do you go by from this to this? So let's just kind of share with you how do you actually see the attributes of an object. So what you need to do is you need to go here to design and to the designer, right? Sorry, the format background. Now the format background will give you basically the default, which is that's looking at the entire slide, but we want to look at the specific object, right? So if I go ahead and click the actual object that I want, it will open an all set of capabilities, right? Or attributes. So we're going to start kind of breaking this down so you can see what, how things look like. I hope the resolution is okay, right? Everyone can see that the right way. I just want to make sure before, just give me the thumbs up. Everyone can see that. Yeah, you good? Yeah. All right. I think so. All right. So let's start. So here I have like this vanilla box, and I want to get to the point that I have this. And after I have this, I can play around with that. So you can see here that I have like multiple attributes. So it's just going to go one by one, right? First of all, you have like the fill in line. So let's try to replicate this. So you can see here like all the parameters, like you see the angle, you see the position, transparency, 50, and brightness, right? So these are all important. You also have the line here, which is another important piece. So let's minimize this for a second or collapse that and start with that. So first thing first, let's take a look here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy paste this, right? Or screenshot the thing, right? And let's just put it here. I think that will make it a lot easier. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to go here to this guy right here. And you can see already that this one has a gradient fill, right? So let's just kind of move that, and that will open all the possibilities, right? And now we need to do like the type, which is linear. That's fine. Angle is 90 degrees. So I'll change that to 90 degrees. You can start seeing the objects taking shape, right? And now we have the color, right? So the color is pretty interesting. And let me show you a quick tip. First of all, I don't know if you're using the color picker or if you're familiar with the color picker from Power Toys. It's a pretty nifty tool that I use a lot. So if you're not familiar with that, I'm just going to bring this here. So this is the color picker utility. Let me just kind of do this here. I'm going to move the always on top. And the color picker is a really interesting tool because it lets you kind of hover over a color and it will give you the hexadecimal of that color, basically the code. So let's just, and there is the keyboard shortcut for this is Windows Control C, I believe. But I actually have here a macro pad. So I'm going to do this. So you can see that I already see the color, right? You can see the color changing. So what do we want to do? First of all, I want to do this. And I'm going to go here to the object, and then I'm going to do the color styling. So now I'm selecting the actual, the actual object that I need. So let me show you this again. Just going to do that and this. Yeah, the color picker is acting funny on me. All right. Now you can see that I'm, so I'm actually selecting the object, and now you can see the actual colors that this object is using for the gradient stops. Okay, so this is important. All right, let's try to mimic this. So we can see that we have 0078D3 as the beginning, and then we can see the same color at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that, and it will give you that prompt. Let's copy that, and now I'm going to go here, and we can see that this is actually the same color. So no, it's not. So let's do this, and we can see here more colors. And now what I'm doing, I'm changing the color to match the same deal. I'm going to do the same for the start. So let's do the recent colors. So oops. So more colors, and yeah, it's the same color. So now we have the base color. Okay, so that's important. That's the base color. All right. Now I'm going to select this again and 150, sorry, 150 and 0. So let's replicate that. So we had 100. Oh, sorry. Just going to do this. All right. So 150. All right. Starting to take shape. Starting to take shape. All right. Let's look at the line. So the line here, we have the, let's copy this again. We'll do that. So we can see everything kind of nice and easy. And go here. All right. Cool. All right. So now we have the line. Let's take a look here at the box and replicate the line. So we can see here that the line is gradient. So we'll do this. And now we're going to start replicating. So angle is 45. Okay. So angle is basically the way that you see the colors kind of going on the object, right? Like what's the angle that you see that? Sometimes it's hard to see, but when you have the full object, it's really easy to see. All right. And now we have a few other things here. So you can see here that we also need to replicate again the color that we had. So I have that saved already. We can also remove, like you can see that you have multiple gradient stops. You don't want that. So I'm just going to remove the ones in the middle, and then I'm going to change it to the same color that we had. So recent colors, because I already used that color. So it's in my recent color palette. And I'm going to pick this one again. Oh, sorry. I was changing the wrong one. It's not good. So here, and it's the line. We'll move this one here. And now we're in the line. We'll move this, and then we'll do that. All right. Now it's the same one. So, oh, okay. So the line here is a bit different. So let's just kind of do that. And all right. Now we're good. So this is the line, right, that we want to change. So this is the color. You can see that I'm selecting this box. This is the color, right? The gradient stop. And now we're going to replicate this. So I'll come here. You can see how the line is also changing, right? Take a look here at, at this area, right? As I'm clicking, right? So 1, 2, 1, 2, right? So now we want to get this into that. So I'm going to go here, and again, we'll change the colors. There you go. And it's the same color. All right, cool. We also have like other attributes. So position 0, 0, and then brightness is 95%. So, and the width is 1. So let's change that, making sure that it's the same. So the brightness is 95% and the width is 1. Okay, you can see that it's already starting to look similar, right? All right. All right, so let's just make sure that everything is okay. Yeah, you can see that as I'm changing, yeah, there's still a difference here. There's still a difference. We want to change that. Let's do that. So it's the color picker. We want to do the turquoise. So let's do that. And all right, let's do the color picker again. And select this guy, remove that, and do the color picker again. Okay, so this is a different color, like the one that we have here for the line. Let's copy that. And color picker has a bit of a bug here, so I'm just going to fix that. All right, so I'm back here in the line. Move this here, and here in the line, I'm going to change it to this. So this is the line color, and we'll do the same here. And after this section, everything will move a lot faster. I just want to show you again the sausage making, so you can see, you can see that. Now let's talk about the, let's talk about the fill here. So, so this one is gradient fill, this one is gradient, right? You can see those differences. It's kind of obvious to see, right? So this one is 95%. This one is position 100. So we'll fix that as well. All right, things are starting to look better. And again, we'll pick this one. So it's this color right here, and we'll change it to this, and we'll change this one to this. All right, so things are starting to look better, but I think you understand the point, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just going to copy paste this, and I'm going to start working with that because I want to show you some more concepts here. So let's just kind of move that. So this is really the base object. This is kind of, what I use. Now the last piece here is to do this round, kind of round edges. So you can see that yellow dot here. Like, I hope you can see that. So you can see that yellow dot here, not the one that I created. So this one. So moving this around will give you those nice rounded edges. So that's kind of nice. All right. Let's close the format shape. So that's the base color. Let's see, so, all right. Now we want to talk about the inside out concept. So the inside out is really important. I'll give you an example here to what I'm referring to when I'm saying inside out, and, multiple examples here. So you can see that, just going to share with you a couple of examples. Let's focus on this box right here that we have. So you can see here that we have basically multiple layers. You have that box, and then you have this guy, and then you have 1, 2, 3 other boxes inside. Okay, so this is the inside out. Like, you basically have multiple boxes inside the same box. So if we'll go here, we can see also multiple examples of this, right? So by the way, here we have a box that is crossing, so we'll talk about that as well. But here's one box, here's another one, here is another one, and here is another one that is just kind of spinning or horizontally across those boxes. So how do you design that? Like, what should you do? What should you do? So the concept of inside out is pretty important. Start with the smallest. Piece that you have in a diagram. Okay, so let's just say that you want to create something. Let's pick something here. Let's just say that you want to create something like this. Okay, so we'll do this, and we'll grab all of these guys. We'll copy that and put it here. Okay, so you can see that the way to go about this is, first of all, to create these small boxes and then go around them. The reason that you want to do this is because this will give you the smallest footprint of that specific area. Okay, because if I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to show you what will happen, right? So let's just say that I am thinking that this will be, the outside box that I need, right? But the problem with that is that, so Control D will give you the replication. The problem with that is that you can never predict, right? So let's just say that we'll, let's just put this as 11 here in the font. I like to use 11. It's a sweet spot, but sometimes it depends. Align text to the middle. Again, small details, really small details. Try to do this. Try to see what happens. I'll talk to you about margins here in a second, and when should you use top or bottom, in my opinion. But generally speaking, I like to put things in the middle, so it will not look kind of wonky. So we'll click here middle, and let's just do test 1. Okay. By the way, the font here, you can see the different. Like, so I like to use. So I used to use like Tentroid as my font, but then I started to the Segoe, like the semi-bold grew on me, so I started using that. So you can see this is the font that I'm using. So I'll just kind of copy that, and basically just gonna do that. All right. So now I have the font that I want. Now here's the problem with with not doing the inside out. So let's just kind of do this. So if I'm gonna go like that, right? You never know what is gonna be the size of the box that you need, right? So let's just say that you have not 4, but you have, I don't know, like 10 boxes inside a small box, right? And different texts, different size. So what you want to do, first of all, is you want to do the common denominator. So for example, let's just say that I have test, and then I have here like just test, and let's just say here, again, Control D will replicate the same object, okay? Same with the same styling. So we'll do here test, right? And here, I also want to do like something that is a bit bigger than just those 5 tests, and I'm going to add one more. So you can already see that there is a problem here, right? Because you basically standardized on one line, and here's another one, and here's another one. Those are one-liners, but then here you have 2 lines, right? So what you want to do is you want to basically select all of them and push it a bit, so that way you will get the common denominator, and all the boxes will be the same. Now, if I were to do this without the inside out, right, it will look something like this, right? And that looks weird, right? I mean, you don't know what is going to be the size of the boxes that you need inside the outer box. So that's why I like to use the inside out concept, because it gives you more control, more granular control. Okay, so let's do Control Z here. And the way to go about this is basically, and sure, you can stretch the box and play with that, but you can save some cycles. It's much easier. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically take all of these guys, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to cover more concepts, right, as we go. So first of all, what I like to do, let's just kind of zoom in. I hope that this will be better. What I like to do is I like, first of all, to level. Like, I like the distance and the symmetry. So take a close look as I'm doing this, like what happens here. You can see that as I'm changing, you can see those arrows popping. That means that the distance between the objects is equal, right? So that will give you, that's the first line of symmetry that you want, is to make sure that this is equal. Now, it doesn't have to be like that that big of a distance. So I'm just going to minimize this a bit. And then I'm going to basically Control G. So Control G will group those objects together. And now I have the inner, basically the inner objects of the box. Okay. So now it's much easier for me, because what I can do now is I can basically build a box around those. So the first thing that I'm going to do when I'm building a box, right, is I'm going to center. So you can see here, as I'm doing this, right, you can see that line, right? That means that you're centered. That means that all your objects, these objects, right, are centered with the outside box. So it's a very important topic. Like, it's the fundamental foundation to everything, okay? Those inside out elements, very important. Now, now we're gonna basically continue. So I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna start stretching, okay? Now, as you're stretching, right, another thing that you wanna kind of take into account is to always test the centering and how much do you need, like how much space do we need. So let's just say that here I'm going to stretch this. If you want to basically have some text here, right, you have a few options. Let's talk about margins as we are doing this, or text margins. Okay, so here I also want to use the same font. Okay, so we'll do this, and I'm going to copy the font. And I'm going to go here. Let's just say that this box represents a collection, right? So I want to maybe have not font at the size of 11, maybe 12. Okay. So I'm just going to go 12 here. And then I'm going to start typing. So this is a test box. Now, notice how much white space I have here. Like, this is a lot of real estate. And maybe you're not seeing that at the beginning, but that's why, I want to show you this type of stuff, right? This is a lot of white space. It's wasted space, right? You want to save that space, because sometimes those diagrams can be crowded. Sometimes you have a lot of elements, okay? So we want to save that real estate. So how do you go about this? Well, this is the default, right? So you can see that here the text is aligned on top, and this is the default. So how do you actually change the default? Well, there's actually a very simple way to go about this. Let's just kind of zoom out here, and I'm going to go here to design and format background, and I'm going to select the box again. Okay, and here I can look at positioning. So positioning will give you basically the positioning of the box, right? So you can just drag and drop this, but a more important thing is the margins that you see here. So especially the top and the bottom margins. Okay, so you can see that the default here, right, is 0.16 inches. Now, if I'm going to go and change that, right, you can see how the text is moving, right? And now what I can do, and I know that this might not sound like a lot, but sometimes it's the difference between a clean diagram and a diagram that can be a lot cleaner, because you have some real estate that you can save. So, and by the way, it doesn't have to be like rounded. You can also do like 0.5 if you want, right? If it makes sense, or 0.8, right? Or 1.2, right? So again, you can play around with that. So we're going to go with 0. Let's just say 1. Now that text is, and let me show you the difference here. So this is a default one, right? So you can see that this is leveled, right? So let's just kind of do this in a one-liner, so you can see the difference. And we'll go to 12, so you can, basically we're comparing the same font, right? So I don't know if you're able to see this. I can. but you can see that this is basically, there is a gap here. And here the gap is much smaller. So small nuances, that's the margin trick that I wanted to show you. And now what I can do is I can basically push that diagram a bit or push that box a bit, and then it will be smaller. I have room for more things. Now, for one box, not so important. But if you have a lot, that makes a difference. Trust me on that. Okay, so this is really the inside out concept. Very important is to, wherever possible, to start from the smallest piece of a diagram and then move your way out. It will give you a lot more control, a lot more granularity, okay? But sometimes it's not possible, okay? Sometimes you will have to play around with this, but eventually you will find your groove, right? You will find kind of the way that you want to go about things. Let me drink some tea here. I talk a lot. For the person that says I talk a lot, you're right. I talk a lot, All right. Short break here. Why do I use PowerPoint? Well, flexibility. Flexibility, styling, color correction, and just the type of work that I do. I present a lot, and PowerPoint to me makes a lot of sense for me to create things naturally inside PowerPoint. And plus it gives me the best results, resolution wise and whatnot. If you go with working something like Visio or Draw.io, or other tools out there, it doesn't give the same, flexibility, like the same agility. Again, my personal opinion only. It's totally fine if other tools are your jam. It's totally okay. All right. Let's talk about object relationship and object dimensions. This is, again, everything is important, right? So everything is just kind of jelloing together. So let's talk about object relationship and project and object dimensions. So when I'm talking about relationship and when I'm talking about dimensions, I like to use, there are multiple diagrams that I can use here as as an example, but it's a very fundamental concept here. When we're saying object relationship, right, you always want to tell a story. When you have like pieces that are floating in space and are not connected, doesn't have any relationship with other pieces of the diagram, that makes it like, it's hard to understand what you are trying to say with a diagram. So object relationship is very important. Now, you have multiple types of object relationships. You can have object relationships that are basically based on arrows. So you're creating a relationship between two objects that are talking to one another. You also have object relationship of icons inside a box. So that will be another good example, what you see here. So you can see that you have this icon inside that box. So that creates a visual relationship, okay, for that specific box. So user Kubernetes workloads, and then you have a pod, right? So the reader or the viewer of that diagram can see that, oh, okay, it's a pod, right? So it's another visual element. That's another relationship type. And you also have relationship of icons that are connecting two boxes sometimes in concept. So that's another example. You can see that you have this box and this box right here. And here you have this icon right here. I know it's the arc icon. Doesn't really matter for the sake of this conversation. But you have this icon that creates basically a mental connection between two elements, two objects. And there are multiple examples of this. The point here with this is to make sure that you understand the concept of object relationship, making sure that you understand that never put an object just kind of floating in space with no real connection whatsoever to anything else. I'll show you more examples here, just kind of, playing around with this. You can see multiple examples in this one. Again, this is the arrow relationship that we talked about. This is the icon relationship that we talked about between the box, the title, and the actual icon that you have here. You have inner box relationship, so an arrow inside the box, and again, remember the inside out concept. So again, a lot of examples for this type of object relationship. Very simple, but very important concept. A lot of people are just ignoring this. A lot of people are just, I see a lot of diagrams that you see an object, but you don't understand what's the point of that object in the story of the diagram. So always try to create those relationships. Important. All right, let's come back to our canvas. And let's see what we have. Object dimensions. So object dimensions is also, again, kind of related to the object relationship, but it also kind of an overarching theme for everything that you do. So object dimensions is very easy to control, but I see a lot of people that are just kind of creating diagrams and don't pay attention to that. So I'll give you a good example to that. So icons is a great example. Let's just kind of copy this icon, or just take those 3 icons, okay? And I'll put those here. Sometimes what you will see is you will see kind of people doing freeform or freestyle diagramming. Now, freestyle diagramming is not going to work for, I want to say for an engineering diagrams that you want someone to pay attention to. In my opinion, I think that engineering diagrams should represent engineering, and engineering is supposed to be accurate. So what I see a lot of people doing is basically taking an icon and not paying attention to, to the size, right? And then what you get is like basically like weird alignments. Sometimes people think that the bigger the icon, right, you're emphasizing something. That's not really the case. What you're doing is you're just wasting real estate. There are other ways to bold something or to emphasize an object. Making the icon bigger is not what you want. So a nice trick here, if you're not familiar with that, let's just say that, I like to, generally speaking, I like to stay within the realms of 0.3 to 0.5 for icons. And let me show you where you can find that. So here you can go here to the graphics format. Okay, so this guy right here, and you can see here that you have the height and the width of that icon. So I like to stay 0.3 to 0.5, and it depends on where the icon is located, right? If I have enough room, I will try to go bigger because it's much more obvious, right? From accessibility standpoint, I guess that the bigger the better, but you want to stay within those boundaries of 0.3, 0.5. 0.2 will be a bit too small. 0.6 will start to be a bit too big for engineering diagrams. Sometimes you have diagrams that you want to blow out the icon, right? You want to have an icon in that size of 1.0, 1.5, depends. But generally speaking, you want to stay here. So you can see that here I have 0.52, here it's 0.43, and here, what do we have? We have 0.47, and even the width is not aligned, okay? So what I can do is I can basically pick all of those and change those at the same time. Now you can see that now it's empty. The reason that it's empty is because they're not aligned. They don't share any common dimensions. To fix that, we're going to go here to height, and I'm going to do 0.4. And here I'm also going to do 0.4. And now you can see that things are changing. Now, the Grafana one, that icon that you have here is a bit different. Sometimes you're going to get icons that by default, right, the ratio of those icons, the width and the height of those icons needs to be different in order for the icon not to look weird, okay? So PowerPoint will fix that for you, which is nice. But generally speaking, it's just going to take another example here. Let's pick Azure Monitor. It's a very round and nice icon, right? So we'll take this, and again, we'll pick all of these, graphic format, and let's just say change this to 0.5 and here to 0.5. Yeah, so you can see that this is okay. This is a line. Now, remember the, what I shared about the kind of the distance. So this is where symmetry, leveling, alignment comes in. Okay, so I'll show you some examples. You can see here that the icons have a different. Sorry, they are at the same distance. Okay. Sometimes what I also see is people just kind of not paying attention to that and do stuff like that. They want to include the icon in the same box, and that's it. It doesn't look clean. So how do you actually, what's the best practice, in my opinion, to incorporate, those icons to an existing box? Taking a look at the question here. Thanks, Joshua. I appreciate the kind words. Pinaki, I hope I'm not butchering your name. I'll talk about this. Okay, I'll talk about how do you export this. Okay, towards the end. Stick around. All right. So what I mentioned is how do you actually go by and create and do these icons in a leveling fashion, symmetry, and all that. So I'll give you some examples, and then we're going to create this. A good example will be something like this. Okay, so take a look at this box right here. You can see that you have 3 icons, right? You have 1, 2, and 3 icons. And these icons are centered, like literally centered with the box. which is nice, right? I mean, they also have the same distance. Okay, so let's see how you're going to go about and create something like that. Now, for some of you, that might look like, oh, that's obvious. But these are things that I see a lot. Like, I see a lot of people just kind of ignoring this stuff. So if you're already familiar with that, awesome, that's great. You're following good rule of thumb. But if you're not, pay attention to this. So you can see, and again, I'm just going to show you some tips and tricks as I go along. You can see that I basically selected this, and now I have this entire thing selected. Like, this box is completely selected. I'm just going to do this like that. So you can see that the entire box is selected. That's not what I want. The reason for that is because everything is grouped. So Control-Shift-G will break that group, okay? And now I can actually go by and select the icons. Now, here you can also see that when I'm selecting one of the icons, pay attention, you can see that this is also grouped, right? And the reason is that because I grouped those. I already did that. Now, we don't want that, so we're going to do Control-Shift-G again. And now each icon is individual, okay? So let's copy all these 3 icons into our canvas, okay? And I'm going to kind of delete those here, just going to make things a bit cleaner. And let's take a look at these 3 icons, okay? Now, again, you have all these 3 here, and obviously they're not level right now. They do have the same size, right? So graphic format will show you that they have the same size. You can see as I'm going 0.4, 0.4, 0.4. That's good. Let's first of all create the, the distance. So this looks like a nice distance between this one. This looks like a nice distance. Wait for those arrows to pop, okay? Again, pay attention. Oh, sorry. Pay attention to these arrows. Because I'm clicking the, it's because I'm clicking the keyboard as I'm trying to align the distance. So pay attention to the distance, okay? You can see those arrows that are showing you that distance, so that's very important. And also the lines. So you can see these are the arrows that I was referring to, but also the lines, the alignment. You can see that it's the same height, right? That's clean, that's kind of the same level, okay? So like a ruler. All right, we'll grab these and, oops. Let's do this and select all of them. Control-G will give you that as a group. Okay, so now do the foundation. Now, let's position that inside the box. Now, remember, okay, the concept of inside out. So what I actually did right now is I follow my own principle, which is I created the smallest piece of the box and then the diagram or another box that goes around that. So this is the smallest piece. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to position that inside the box. Okay, so you can see here that as I'm positioning this, right, it's centered. Always pay attention to this. Pay attention to the centering. You can see that, there you go. You can see that line popping, right? That is centered. That is nice, right? Also, the text is centered because that is coming default. Okay, so the text here is centered. Look at this. This is centered, and the aligned text is also. So this one is top because it's at the top of the box, right? But it's centered, and that's what's important. Okay, so we'll kind of take this and we'll position this here, and then we're just gonna basically grab that box and push it a bit, and there you go. Now, another thing, as I'm creating this, I want to show you one more thing. Again, you can see small nuances, right? Small nuances that that create that perfect diagramming. Pay attention to the gap that you have between these icons, right, and the border of the box. Okay, why is that important? Well, if you have an arrow, okay, that needs to enter the box, okay, you want to keep a bit of margin so the arrow will not get cut by the border. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, first of all, an example. Okay, let's take a look at an example here. Try to find a good example that I have. There you go. Here's a good example. So let's pay attention to this. Again, I know that I'm kind of jumping between concepts, so pay attention. And also, obviously, this is recorded. You can just kind of take a look after, so and watch that in slow motion. But I want to show you as many concepts as possible. All right, so let's take a look at the arrows. You can see how these arrows that you have here are actually penetrating the box. Okay, so this is something that what I see sometimes is that people are just kind of shooting the arrow and not paying attention to the fact that you actually don't see the tip of the arrow. And that's kind of weird. Let me show you this in action. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to the canvas, okay? And we're going to basically, so let's Control D, okay? And we're going to create a relationship between those two boxes using an arrow, okay? Let's just say that, let's just say that this will be an application, okay? Uh, Again, very generic, doesn't mean anything in the context of our, our stream here and our session here. But let's just say that this is an application. And let's just say that this application, right, needs to connect to that SQL icon. Okay, again, technology, doesn't matter. Okay, that's not the point. The point is the diagramming. So let's do that. Go to here to insert, shape, and arrows. Okay. Now, the thing with arrows, by the way, is that I used to like to go here and beef up the arrow a bit to 1 point, right, of a width. I don't do that anymore. I actually, do the, the 3/4. I kind of like it. It's minimal. It's cleaner, in my opinion. Anyway, I stopped doing this and, kind of stuck with the 3/4. Anyway, so this is the arrow that we have here. So now what we're saying is that this needs to go into the SQL. But what would happen if, remember that margin that I was referring to? Let's just say that you have this, okay? And I'm just gonna do that. And you have the box, and you think that that box, right, is perfect, right? You have everything that you need. You have the icons, you have the text, the size, everything looks okay, right? But what you didn't pay attention to is the margin, right? And the margin is important with the border. So I'll show you this. Let's just kind of zoom in. And I'm gonna shoot that arrow. Okay. Now you can see what's happening already, right? So that arrow basically is getting cut by the border. So now you're kind of in a lose-lose, right? You don't create the relationship that you want, and it's open for interpretation because you don't understand if the application needs to hit the AKSEE box, right? Or the actual icon. So you want to pay attention to the margins. The way to go about this, very easy. Just kind of do this. And look at that. That's a world of difference. I know it looks weird, and I know it's like not weird, but small details. But that's, that means a lot because that means that you created the right relationship. Okay. Imagine what will happen if you connect the wrong wire, like electricity-wise. Imagine what will happen if you connect the wrong wire to the wrong place, right? Again, sometimes shit happens. So you want to take that into account. So these are the kind of the relationship. We covered the icons, and we touched on that a bit. So we're already talking about arrows here. So let's just gonna stay in that space. Okay. Just gonna look at the chat here, see if you guys have any questions. I hope you all find it useful. Yeah, some good comments. Thanks for that. I hope you find it useful. I really do. I know that, it's kind of a weird topic, but, it's interesting in my opinion. So just gonna grab some tea here. I talk a lot. All right, let's talk about arrows here. So arrows are important, okay? Because arrows are really just kind of one piece of a relationship. So we talked about the relationship aspect, right, of arrows and what does arrows really represent. So arrows represent relationship. Okay, you're connecting two objects together, but text adds a different element. Okay, because a lot of the time arrows are open for interpretation. Andres, is there any template PP? Yeah, of course, I'll share that. Stick around, I'll share that. Not a problem. There's definitely a template. So what I started saying is that the arrows are, when you have text, that adds another element of relationship. It explains what the arrow is supposed to say. Okay, so that's very, that's very important. You want to try to put text on arrows as much as possible, in my opinion, wherever possible. So another good example will be in this diagram that I have right here. I'll show you this one. So here. I really like these type of diagrams because it really kind of gives you a nice example. If I would not have this, this text right here, right, it would have been, again, kind of open for interpretation. You don't want that. You want to at least have some sort of visualization for these arrows wherever possible. So pay attention to the text. Try to put as much text as possible, but not too much. Remember, sometimes less is more. But you want to keep it minimal but informative. Okay, so just kind of pay attention to that. Another quick tip that I will give you as we're talking about text with arrows is to try to differentiate the type of text that you're that you're putting. So I see a question. I'll answer that in a second here. So try to make sure that you are uh, uh, noticing the type of text. So here you can see that I have, like, here is just basically JSON. That's the text, right? But here I actually have some code or a quote, right? So what you want to do is you want to differentiate that type of text with the one that the text that comes before that, okay? Because you're trying to emphasize a point here, and this is a very specific example, right? In this example, what you're seeing is you're basically seeing kind of a key value elements of a JSON file. And you want to emphasize that. It's important for the storytelling of the diagram. Storytelling is very important. Okay, so just kind of pay attention to that. You can see another example here, of this text. Okay, so again, text, arrows, pay attention to that. Kind of important. I get a lot the question of when do you use dotted line arrow? When do you use a straight line arrow or fill arrow? So basically the difference between this type of arrow and this type of arrow, this type of arrow, like when do you use what? Well, do what you feel, that makes sense to you. That will be my rule of thumb. Personally, what I like to do with this type of stuff is that when I'm trying to basically describe an optional relationship or something that is not specific to the engineering element of a diagram, and it's got to do with relationship or something like that, I will use dotted line. Okay, so for example, here I have like an engineering relationship between this one, this one, this one, this one. So you can see that I'm using those straight lines, right? Those fill lines. But here, it's not part of the engineering story that I'm trying to tell. So that's why I'm trying to differentiate that with a dotted line. So that's really what it is. Another good example to a dotted line is when we're trying to tell a story of separated environments. Okay, so on premises and cloud, or before or in front of the firewall, or outside of the firewall, like stuff like that. So I like to use dotted line for this type of stuff because it kind of creates this visual mental separation. Okay, so that's where I'm using this type of stuff. I see a question. How do you handle? So I'm just going to show you this on screen. How do you handle dependency arrows backwards so they don't conflict with object flow direction arrows? Thank you. Trying to understand the question there, Craig. Trying to understand what you mean. How do you handle dependency arrows? Try to explain it again. Okay, over chat, I'll come back to you. Okay, try to explain it differently. I'm struggling a bit to understand what you mean there. Okay, maybe an example will be a good one. I'll put it on screen. All right. So we talked about arrows and all of that. Let's continue with the list. Alignment. I want to talk to you about alignment here for a second. Very short and sweet topic. Okay, alignment. Let's just say that you finished with your diagram, everything is good, or in the middle of the diagram you want to center things, right? Sure, you can do that in a manual fashion. Let's just say that here, I want to basically take this box. So let's just kind of replicate this just for the sake. So Control D, I just replicated the slide, okay? And I'm gonna delete this and gonna delete that, make things a bit cleaner. And I'm gonna select this entire thing and Control G. Now you can see that this box right now is floating in space. So you actually have two ways to go about this. You have the manual way, or you have the the automatic way or the PowerPoint way. If you have a lot of objects, I will recommend to go the PowerPoint way, or the automatic way, I should say. So let me explain to you what it means. So let's just say that I want this to be in the center. So what I can do is, first of all, I can see that the center or the vertical center pops. And then as I move in, you can see the horizontal center pops. Okay. And that means that that box is now in the center of the diagram. But you actually have a way to go about this. If you go here to arrange and align, you can see here that you have multiple options. You can do align center, right? So let's just really move this across. So here again, align center, and then align middle. Now, where do I use this? When I'm done with the diagram, I actually like to center everything. Okay, so how do I do this? So as you're working on a diagram, let me replicate this as well. As you're working on a diagram, right? Um, Sometimes it's not going to be like 100% aligned. You know what? This one is not a good example. Let me show you this example here. Has less elements and more white space here, so it will be easier to explain. So let's just say that I just done with this diagram, and eventually I ended up here, right? Because you're moving things around, you're shuffling things, and I ended up here. So the way I like to do this is basically just kind of select everything, Control G, mark everything as a group, and then do what I just did or what I just showed you, which is align center and um, align middle. Okay. Now, in this case, I already have like a title. So the middle piece, you can see that it's already going over the title. So I'm just kind of go here and until I'm happy, and that's it. Okay. So again, quick tip to to alignment and and all that. All right, we're moving fast here. We're covering a lot of topics. Let's talk about colors, okay? And then I'm going to talk about icons. I know people care about the icons. Definitely, I'm going to talk about that. Don't worry. Let's talk about colors. I'm a visual person. I don't like black and white. I like to have like visual kind of elements. I also like to play with colors. Like I said, I'm a big believer that you eat with your eyes first. It's to me, it's very important. It makes things a bit less boring, a bit more naughty sometimes. And I like to keep my diagrams very, very colorful, but not too much. This is not supposed to be the rainbow. It's supposed to be like on point, and you need to have colors that are complementary to one another. Okay, so basically what I like to do with coloring, I have some color schemes that I like to use, right? The dark blue or the purple or the dark gray, all these colors. But an important thing here is that don't be afraid to play with colors. Actually, colors are important, so don't be afraid to work with them. So let me show you what I mean. Let's just say that I'm creating this, and let me just kind of replicate that, and I want to have this guy right here, or let's just say that this box, right? I want to have it in a different color. So sure, what I can do, I'm just going to zoom in here a bit. What I can do, I can just kind of pick that, and then you have the shape fill. Okay. Now the shape fill, you will have what the palette is offering you, and that's fine. But a lot of the time, what I will do, I will actually go and use the more fill colors. The reason that I'm going to do this is because sometimes I need more colors, and the default colors are not what I need, or they're not complementing, sorry, to the text, that I'm using. Okay, so I like to play with those colors. Now, I usually don't use the standard color palette. I use the custom one, and what I like to do is I like to just kind of go around that, okay, and pick what I want. So that's one option, okay, and just kind of, oh, that's my wife. So just kind of play with the color, okay. Now, an important thing here to realize is that the notion of accessibility, okay, and how do you make sure that the colors that you're picking are actually meeting some accessibility requirements. So let me share with you a resource here. So I'll bring the browser, okay, and you have here this guy right here. So this is WebAIM, or Web Accessibility in Mind. This will give you a contrast checker. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to pick the colors that you're using and then put them into the tool, and it will give you a result, or just kind of a ratio, right? If you're in the green, that means that you're good. If you're in the yellow, you need to change some stuff, or if in the red, this is not accessibility oriented color. So you want to take this into account. Okay, so this tool is kind of important. I'll show you kind of the difference here. So let's just say that I'll pick the background color. So you can see here that the foreground color is blue and the background color is white. So let's just change this to right. And you can see now that this is definitely not the contrast ratio that you have is failing, right? You can see here the fail, right? Fail, 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 right? That means that you're no good. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're always staying within the accessibility boundaries, and you want to make sure that you're always kind of making your diagrams, pop, but in accessible fashion. Okay, so that's very important. As you can see, as I'm moving this, you can see that I'm passing the tests. that's great. So pick whatever color that makes sense to you. Again, these are colors that works for me. It doesn't mean that it needs to work for you, but they need to be complementary to one another. Now, if you're using my templates, if you're using the diagrams that I'm sharing with you, you're also going to have all these colors and everything, so it will be easier for you to just kind of pick around. Okay, so want to make sure that that you're aware of that. What are the other things that I want to cover with color? Yeah, accent colors. Okay, so that's another one. So accent colors, what I mean by accent colors is, just going to give you an example here. We'll go here and talk about accent colors. Where is it? Okay, here's a good example. So an accent color or a background accent color is basically the background that you see here and how it complements the objects that are inside the box. So here we actually have two objects, or we actually have three objects. The two obvious one are the text that you have, right? Obviously you have a white text here, but you also have here the icon. That's the Azure icon, bluish, right, icon. But you also have the boundary, okay, of the box. That's another object or a styling object that you need to take into account. So an accent color or background accent color needs to complement this. Okay, it's kind of important. It's kind of important piece. Now, again, you can also see, by the way, if you're sharp enough, you can see that this entire style of diagramming is different than this one, for example, right? You can see, and I'll show you what I mean. Like I'll copy this and I'll put it here next to it, right? You can see that this box is transparent and it's not the same as these boxes. So again, I know it's kind of weird to see, but you can see that this box that I have here, right? So this, right, is not the same as this. So it's a different styling of a diagram. These are one of the old diagrams that I created, and before I started to change kind of my styling. So it's kind of nice to see. Anyway, the accent colors are important. You can see here another example for an accent color. You can see like purple on purple, but the way that I basically made those inner boxes to pop is to change or make the construct a bit stronger for the borders of the outside boxes. Okay, so that's another way for you to just kind of to make things a bit more obvious. Okay, so again, accent colors, background, these are all important. Don't worry, everyone, I'll share with you the links in the description after the live session. Don't worry. All right, let me see some more questions before I'm talking about icons here. I know this is a big one. So isn't flat look and not gradient more preferred and in style? Depends. So I'll put that. Let me put that question here. So Pinaki, isn't flat look and not gradient more preferred and in style? Well, I don't know. It's better for me. Let's just say that it's more like my style. Again, there's no one source of truth here. I mean, this is, again, like I mentioned, just my opinion. I don't think there is like in style or a best practice that way. Everything needs to complement everything. So it's really an holistic kind of view that you want to take into account, and not just a specific box and the gradient of this box. Okay, so yeah. All right, icons, and then I'm going to talk about step numbers. You know what? Let's talk about step numbers first, and then talk about icons. So step numbers. Step numbers, that's another type of relationship. We talked about the relationship between objects. Step numbers also help to emphasize this. Now, a lot of the times what I like to do when I'm using step numbers is to actually have a text that is complementary to those to those step numbers, okay? So how do I go by and create this? Actually, it's kind of a nice trick. So you know how we already have like the baseline object that we had here. So if I go here, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but if not, hey, great, you're here to learn some tips and tricks, right? So here you can see that I have like the default round object. Great. Obviously, it doesn't look good. Doesn't look like I wanted it to look. First thing first, let's kind of use the format painter. Okay, so I'll pick that. Okay, and now I have that styling selected. I'm going to go and use the format painter that you have right here. Okay, and I'll click that, and then there you go. So the format painter is a really kind of powerful tool when you're creating things from scratch. But if you already have the diagram or the template, you're golden. You already have those step numbers. Now, the last piece here is the text inside. So I'm just going to show you this. So I'm going to go with the default. You can see that the one, right, is definitely not centered, right? It's leaning towards the bottom of the object. We don't want that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do align text, and I'm going to change it to middle. This also doesn't look very good. Doesn't look great. It's also look like a bit weird. So what you can do is you can actually use what I just showed you, which is the margins. So I'll go here to design, format background, right? We'll go and select this, and we'll pick this, and here I can do the top margin. Yeah, the reason, by the way, that this happened is because that, remember that we played with the margin of this guy right here. So another example, kind of diving deep into these small details, another example here, you can see that how this is not happening is that if I'm going to go here and create another one, right, and I'm going to create, basically I'm going to pick one that I didn't change the so I'm going to pick that one. Okay, I didn't change the margin for that one. You can see that it's the default. So we'll go here. You can see that it's the default, like 0.16, 0.16, right? So if I'm going to pick that and then use the format painter, do this, and then click one, right? You can see that this is by default in the center of the round object. So kind of a small detail. What I like to do with step numbers, just one last thing, is to give them an accent color. So I like to use a different color to make them pop, and always use the same color for the step numbers. You don't want different colors for the step numbers. They need to be consistent because they represent like just kind of one theme, which is the step numbers. Okay, so we want to make sure that they're popping no matter what. So I like to use like colors that will complement this. So purple is always a nice option with this color palette. So yeah, these are step numbers. All right, everyone's favorite topic, icons. Where do I get my icons? How do I do that? Like what's the deal, whatnot. So a couple of things. One, let me just kind of, first of all, bring this here, and we'll open this, and okay. So a few things with regards to icons. So unfortunately, when if you're not working for Microsoft, I can share with you one of the resources that I have for official Microsoft icons that are internal. But if you are working for Microsoft, reach out. I'll make sure that I'm sharing this with you. But luckily, we have good alternatives that are out there in the wild that you can use. The first one is the Azure Architecture icons. They actually did a good job on updating a lot of stuff. So you can see that the last update was 3 months ago, something like that, maybe a bit more than that. That's okay. And you have a lot of the icons that are, that I'm using here. So that's kind of nice. You also have, and I called this out in, in the previous stream that I did, David Summers. So David did a great job on creating this repository with a lot of icons. So you can go check out the repository. I'll put the links in the description down below. You can check it out. But David did a great job on creating all these icons and organizing them. Really superb job. So it's a great asset for you to use. He goes through the methodology that he's using for his icons. Highly recommended. And honestly, you have a lot of what you need. Now, if you're looking for icons that are not Azure icons, a quick tip that I will give you here, and obviously, some of those already got like a, official icon bundles. So if you go and do, for example, so Kubernetes icons for PowerPoint, right? You actually have here, in the Octo Technology repository, you have like Kubernetes icons, so you have everything that you need, and that's just kind of one example. But generally speaking, let's just say that I want to have like I don't know, Grafana icon. So Grafana logo, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write PNG. So I will get the transparent one, and I go here to images, and basically, I'm just going to click, and you can see that, by the way, this, if you're not familiar with that, this checkers background means that this is transparent. So what you can do is you can just kind of drag and drop this into your PowerPoint and use that. Just kind of play around with that. That's a pretty basic rule of thumb for you to use with with icons and whatnot. So two good repositories or two good sources for icons will be the Azure Architecture Center, and I highly recommend David's repository. All right, looking at some questions. Let's see. What is your tool to see SVG files in Windows Explorer for Windows 11? Well, I actually think that the photo viewer is supposed to be able to show this. I'm not sure, but personally, I use Snagit. It's a paid license. I can leave a link in the description. But you also have like freewares that that can do that, Armando. Usually, I just kind of drag the SVG into PowerPoint and I can see the SVG. So by the way, it's a good segue to one of the topics, like what's the difference between SVG and a PNG. So I actually put it here, and the source here is coming from Adobe. Generally speaking, what you want to know about this is that SVGs are kind of describe an icon in a mathematical, programmatic way. So if you will look at the source code of an SVG, you can actually see a source code, right? And I like to use SVGs because it gives me a lot of flexibility. It gives me a lot of flexibility when it comes to manipulating the shape, and there is no scaling issues as I'm stretching those icons. Usually they act a bit better. PNGs are okay as well. I mean, it's totally fine. It really depends on what you are trying to do. If you find a PNG that is a good resolution and meeting your needs, that's totally okay. At the end of the day, when you're sharing the diagram, it doesn't really matter. I think that the difference here is not critical for the purpose of for the purpose of this diagramming. So just a point, and I'll leave the link for this source in the description below. So I hope that helps a bit. All right, I have a couple more topics that I want to cover before we're wrapping things up. I know a lot of things, like we're talking about a lot of stuff, a lot of concepts. Again, I hope this is useful to you, really. I usually don't do a lot of live streams because I just don't have time, but it's the end of the year. I like this topic. I was like, okay, why not? Let's just go with that. Okay. Another topic is intentional gaps for a cleaner look. Let me show you what I mean by intentional gap. It's a nice touch. It's really a nice touch for something that you can do pretty easily. So a lot of the times, again, I know that I'm using this a lot. A lot of the times what I see is people just kind of crossing text with lines, and it looks weird. I'll give you an example, right? So you can see here that I actually have like this line that is designed to create a separation between two areas, right? So you have this one and you have this area right here, and you have that line in between. But I also need to have a text. Well, what can I do? The text is interfering with the line. So the way to go about this is to actually invest a bit of time to make it a bit cleaner, okay? And not be lazy about this. So how do I create this type of structure? You can see that it looks clean, right? So how do I go about and do this, right? The default for a lot of people is to be like, okay, let me just gonna do this. That doesn't look good, like, look at this, doesn't look good. So how do you actually create this? Pretty easy. Let's do that in our Kanban. Here we'll open let's just kind of do that. Copy the text, put it here, and we'll do this. We'll align to the middle. We'll do the centering, like we said. Obviously, the font here is big, but that doesn't matter for the sake of this demonstration. I'm going to go here and to the shapes. I will pick here the line, and I'm going to start doing a line. Now, obviously, the line here, you can see that it's tilting, right? That's not how it's supposed to be. A nice trick here is to go to the shape format. If you want to make sure that your line is straight, right, and not just kind of freeform, if you're not familiar with that trick. So what you want to do is you want to go to the width of that line and basically align that to 0. Okay, that will make the line straight. The next piece that you want to do is you want to center basically the text that you have with the line. So again, see what's happening. Okay, you can see that the text is now aligned with the line. I know it's funny, aligned with the line. So just kind of pay attention to that. Okay, and the last thing that I will do is, well, not the last, I'm gonna do another line right here, right? And here it's a tricky one because you can see that as I'm moving the line, it's not aligning with the other line. I know we're saying line a lot, but it's not aligning with the other line. So a trick that you can use in order to do this, right, is one, you can also play with the text that you have, right? And if the text is aligning with the two lines, great, awesome. But if it's not and you're struggling with this, what you can do is you can go here to view, and you can actually use the grid lines, okay? And you can also use the guides. Grid lines should be fine. So what you can do is you can basically take, okay, let's just do the text. You know what? Let's move the text. Start with the lines, okay? So just gonna zoom in here a lot. And what you can do is you can position, then play with the arrows a bit until you are centered, okay? So this one is pretty centered. That's totally fine. You can see here, I'm just going to zoom in. You see those black dotted lines that I have, right? That means that the line is now centered with the grid, okay? Now, all I need to do here now is to basically grab this, whoop, and do this with the other line as well. Just going to zoom in here. You can see that the line is now the same level. Then all I need to do is just kind of take the text that is the text, and align that. So just a nice trick. And the last piece to this, let's just kind of move the grid lines, is to mark those two and just go here, shape outline, dashes, and pick, the pattern that you want. I like the dashes, minimal, clean, nice. So that's how you create this clean separation. Please don't take lines and scratch or go over a word. It looks weird, and it's not, it doesn't give a nice clean look to the diagram. So it's an important piece. Okay, we covered a lot. I think that I covered everything that I wanted. I think that there's a lot of things here, that we can cover. But let's talk about two more topics. First, how do you actually export this in a high resolution, and also what's the hardware that I use in order to to do a lot of this stuff. I know that people were asking me this, so I'm just going to share with you some stuff here. Okay, so first thing first, in terms of exporting. So just going to bring back the browser. There are two methods to do this, but if you will write PowerPoint, and again, I will leave the links in the description. PowerPoint, high resolution, let's just say high resolution. You'll go here to Microsoft Learn, how to export high resolution, high DPI slides from PowerPoint. Follow that document, pretty easy. Couple of registry edits that you need to do in order to change the default. Actually, one registry edit that you need to do in order to change the default, and it will give you high resolution exports. Okay. What you want to do here in order to actually do those export is to go here to File, and then you want to go to Save As. And here, what you can do is you can actually pick like JPEG or PNG, right? That will give you what you want, and it will export in a high resolution fashion. Okay. Just pay attention as you're doing this. If you want to do this for, just one, do you want to do this for all slides or just one slide? So just pay attention to that. So that's one way to go about this. Another way to go about this is to actually use a screen capture software. Like I mentioned, I'm using SnagEdit, and I like it a lot because it gives me a lot of flexibility to the things that I do. It costs money. It's not that expensive, but again, it's your choice what you wanna use. Basically, when I'm capturing the screen and I'm just gonna go in and do something like this, right, and picking the areas that I want, automatically Snagit will take this in high resolution. And what I can do, I can just kind of save the file and have that as a high resolution. It's nice because it gives me the opportunity to capture parts of the screen and not necessarily the entire slide. Sometimes I just need one part of the screen, because if I'm working on a diagram with someone and I just want to talk about that specific piece, right, I don't need the entire diagram. I just kind of select that specific area. So that's how you go by and export this stuff. All right, 5 minutes left to this stream. Let me talk to you about the things that I use in order to do this. Now, again, these are just the things that I'm using. I'll share with you some tips and tricks on how I use those. We'll grab some tea here because I talk a lot. All right, first thing first, the keyboard that I'm using is a Logitech G915 TKL. So I'll show you this right here. It's this guy right here. So this is the Logitech, G915 TKL. I like it. 75%, very easy, very clicky, nice and easy. Doesn't really matter. It's diagramming. The keyboard is not important. The mouse is important, and I'll tell you why. Because you want to have a good ergonomic mouse, okay? If you're doing a lot of these diagrams, so this is the Logitech MX Master 3S, okay? If you do a lot of these diagrams, okay, there are two things that you want to take into account. One, your hands, okay? Don't make them break. I had carpal tunnel for as long as I remember. I tried a lot of things. This mouse really helps, at least for me. And also the shortcuts, the keystrokes that you can use, okay? So I have this small, you can see that here, that middle button right here. That's the one that I'm using for quick screenshots. So I just click, boom, I have a screenshot. That's nice. And a couple of other options. So I highly recommend that mouse. For the monitor, I'm actually switching. So for many years, I owned the Dell U3818DW. Very good monitor, really. But as I am progressing with my content creation and YouTube and color grading and whatnot, I wanted to have something that is a bit more color oriented. So I actually have sitting in my garage the ViewSonic VP3881A. Go check it out if you want. Very good monitor for color grading. So that's what I'm going with. Macro controllers. So that's kind of a nice one. If you're not familiar with macro controllers, is basically the most famous one is the Elgato Stream Deck. So I own actually two of those. So I have this one, which is the latest with the knobs. I have a lot of kind of shortcuts with those macros, and I use that for PowerPoint as well. I actually have a profile for PowerPoint. I didn't use that in this stream, but I actually use that a lot with PowerPoint because when I do grouping, for a lot of things, right? So that really, it's kind of a nice touch. So I use that. And recently I just purchased the Toolbox Neo. So the Toolbox Neo, I didn't use that for our live stream here. So this is the Toolbox Neo. I hope you can see it. Yeah, the camera is looking good. So the Toolbox Neo is really an interesting one. It's a macro controller for multiple applications. So I do a lot of video editing, I do a lot of diagramming, and I do a lot of other things that, this is very useful. And you can see that you have like these different functionalities that you can assign to all these, knobs and, and arrows and buttons and whatnot. Super nice. And I started using that with PowerPoint, and I'm really starting to love it. You don't see the camera on stream? Oh, really? You do. Come on. You guys can see that? You guys can see that, right? Oh, yeah. Guess what? You didn't see me the entire time. That's kind of funny. Now you can see me. All right. So I'll repeat that piece. Hi everyone. I really wanted you guys to see me, but apparently I forgot. Anyway, so like I mentioned, the Logitech MX Master 3S. I'm just going to go over that real fast. That's the mouse. That's the mouse. That's the button that I was referring to for quick screenshots. That's nice. The Elgato Stream Deck. I'll show you this again. This is the Elgato Stream Deck. Super nice device. And this one is the Toolbox. So this is the macro pad that I was referring to. Okay, now it's focused. So this is the macro pad. Very nice device. I will leave links in the description below. I also have a couple more nice touches here. So this is the glorious ergonomic gaming keyboard wrist rest. So it's this one, very nice, very soft. You can see it's already beat up, right? So if you do a lot of diagram or a lot of coding, whatnot, you want to have a good wrist rest. So that one is a nice one. And the last piece is the Delta Carpio 2.0. So it's this small guy right here. And it sits very nice on the on the wrist. It takes a bit of time to get used to, but once you do, you can go back. I can tell you that I can't go back. So anyway, that was that was today's stream. I hope it was useful. I hope you learned a thing or two. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, or if you're Microsoft, feel free to hit me up on Teams. And thank you so much for joining. I mean that. I appreciate that a lot. I know that sometimes you don't get these type of sessions, but I hope that was useful to you. And I'm gonna see you in 2024. Thanks, everyone. See you on the other side. Bye.